Well, at the top of the show, you know, we spoke about the high arrest rate among Black and Hispanics in America. Well, you can add young people overall to that list when you get into it. According to the Journal of the American Academy of Pediatrics, at least 1 in 3 Americans will be arrested by the time they're 23 years old. That compares to just more than 1 in 5 in the mid-1960s. And joining us now is Matt Siegel, co-founder of Our Time. It's an organization standing up for the economic interests of young Americans. And Matt, are we arresting more young Americans because young Americans are more criminal?
Most of the young people accounted for in this statistic, Dylan, are being arrested for things as little as not obeying curfew, let alone minor nonviolent drug offenses and alcohol offenses. So what we've done yet again is create more resources to house people who are part of the problem rather than go after the symptom of the problem, which is, in the first place, which is the fact that we haven't built the psychological and societal support systems for disconnected young people. We haven't invested in an education system that's working. We haven't invested in counseling. And meanwhile, as you noted in the beginning of your show, we have a private prison lobby who pleases shareholders by virtue of the fact that they have beds to fill. So they're lobbying for politically savvy or politically expedient, tough on crime legislation so that we put more people in prison beds as opposed to go after the symptom of the problem.
Yeah, if you were to look at the statistics, it says the average cost of keeping someone in prison is $30,000 a year. The average cost of keeping someone in public school is 2/3 cheaper, $10,000 a year. You mentioned the political expedience factor. Will you elaborate on that? Because obviously the economics of prison are expensive for the American people. Why is it politically expedient?
Well, because we reward politicians who want to be tough on crime. And of course we all want to make sure that people who tarnish the public trust are no longer able to pose a threat to our communities. But you look at the majority of young people being locked up, yet again, I mean, these people do not belong in prison. They do not belong in a system where there are huge recidivism rates. By the way, if you're in prison, odds are you're going to wind up back in prison. And on top of that, you have to look at the economic effects of the fact that people are in prison. It's tougher to get a job because we have employers who have background checks. And when you have a background check on someone with a criminal record, it makes them tougher to get a job. And we all know that a job is one of the biggest offenders and prevention measures of crime and of getting involved in any kind of negative activity. So, I mean, one for that, but then we also have a prison lobby that has said, you know, we can do it cheaper and we can house our inmates with less bureaucracy. But what has happened here is they're doing it cheaper because they're not paying their guards as much, and the facilities in these prisons are awful. There's violence, there's, you know, terrible sanitation issues, and so the young people emerge from prison more hardened and not rehabilitated. I mean, why do we call these things departments of corrections? They're not correcting anyone. They're not rehabilitating people. They're making us, if anything, less safe because they're making young people angry and violent when they get out. We need to go back to the source of the problem, which is a lack of support systems. For $3 billion, which is what our private prison system made last year alone, we could give 100,000 people $30,000 a year jobs. I mean, it's just completely backwards.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned the fact that we fund our public education system based on the property values, which actually results in the exact opposite. It results in reverse hotspotting, where we underallocate deliberately to the educational systems that are most in need. How many people in our political system are even, do you think, aware that that's what they're doing? Or do you think that that's an intended thing or an unintended thing?
I think it is largely built on, yet again, a system that's more accountable to rich and powerful one percenters than the majority of people. And I mean, I think some politicians are aware of it. I think others don't even know how local communities are being funded and how their school systems are working. I think at the end of the day, I mean, these problems start early. And if you invest in a young person when they're young and you give them an education and you give them a support system, and you give them community services and Head Start programs, they're going to actually become a productive citizen of society who creates value.
Yeah, it's stunning. You wouldn't think that such simple principles would require so much effort to discuss, like saying, hey, what do you say we actually invest in our country? What do you say we actually invest in our young people? What do you say we actually invest and use the discrete data of the 21st century to do it with hotspotting? I know that you are leading that crusade, Matt. Thank you so much for all of your efforts. Matt Siegel at ourtime.org.